Well, hello there my beautiful friends. Today we are going to be duping the Celestial Divinity Luxe quad from Miss Pat Mcgrath herself. When this quad came out, I knew I needed to get my hands on it, but then I realized I have some shades already like it in my collection, so why not dupe it? So if you are ready to see these dupes, then go ahead and keep on watching and let's jump right on in. But let's go ahead and just hop right on into the dupes here, and the first dupe that we have is for the shade Rose Rebellion, which is that insanely beautiful matte, like deep berry fuchsia color that is in the palette. It is the standout shade. It is the shade that grabs your attention. It definitely grabbed my attention when I first saw this palette. But my dupe for this shade is from Makeup Geek, and this is one of their power pigments. This is the shade Unleashed. Now, this is described as a warm, bright, rosy pink matte. It's not as pinky as it looks on camera. On camera, it almost looks like kind of like a hot pink, kind of like a Barbie pink, if you will, and in person, it's much more of a berry tone with like a hint of kind of Barbie magenta undertones, if you will. It's definitely a lot deeper than it looks, and you'll see that in the swatches. These swatches more true to the actual color, and to me, this looks almost spot on to what we see in the Pat Mcgrath palette. This shade is a little bit more sheer, a little bit more patchy, I would say. It's not the most amazing formula, but as far as the color goes, this looks pretty darn close to me. As far as dupes go, this is close enough for me. I can make it work. It does build up. It just needs a little bit of extra love and attention, but you can get there. But the overall undertone really reminded me of the Pat Mcgrath shade. Next up in the palette, we are duping the shade Life on Mars. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am hearing David Bowie echoing in my head right now because of that name. And it is described as a copper rose. That description is just delicious. I love it so much. So I went ahead and reached for Clionadh Cosmetics' stained glass collection, the shade Engrave. And this is described as having a semi-sheer brown base with large glitter particles that shift from lilac pink to orange and to gold. Now, I wouldn't say that this is chunky by any means. It's a very smooth glitter, but you definitely get that kind of multi-chromatic toppery shadow effect. So there are some glitter particles, but it's most definitely not a pressed glitter, and you don't get a whole lot of fallout either. The Clionadh stained glass collection, I mean, come on, we all know that it is absolutely incredible. They are always sold out of it. I was able to get my hands on quite a few of the shades, so I'm very lucky for that, but their formula is just to die for as far as sparkly, beautiful, really multi-dimensional shadows go, and I figured this was the perfect addition to my little faux Pat Mcgrath palette here, if you will. Now, in the swatch, you can't really see the orange undertone that well, but in person, you get like this beautiful hint of kind of rosy mauve with a beautiful goldeny, kind of almost auburny color. It's almost like a burnt orange undertone, but the swatch here unfortunately just does not do it justice. So I went ahead and swatched it. In just a moment, you'll see. Just by itself, with all my lights off and just with the flash on, all of my studio lights, and you can see a little bit more of the orange shift. It's just a little bit harder to see on camera for some reason because it just wanted to be a brat today. But it is a stunning shade nonetheless, and you really get that kind of coppery rose effect, and you get a little bit more too, so that's why I went ahead and picked Engrave. Now, I was bad, and I kind of got these out of order when I was filming. This is the shade Lavendering, and it actually should have been before Life on Mars and even before the next shade we're going to talk about, so I am very sorry about that. But we are duping the insanely gorgeous shade Lavendering from the palette. This is like the other standout shade from the palette. This is the standout multi-chromatic duochrome shade that really catches your attention when you first see it, and this is described as a duochrome cool lavender to pink with gray undertones, and it is so shimmery and bright and just the epitome of Pat Mcgrath shimmery eyeshadow goodness. And when I saw it in that palette, I knew that I had a very, very close dupe in Touch of Glam Beauty's Pink Me About It, which is a purpley kind of gray, almost cool toned, like lavendery color, and it has a beautiful pink shift with some gray undertones as well. It's very cool toned, and then you get just a hint of warmth from that kind of pink that's peeking through. It is stunning. It is so pigmented and very easy to work with. You can tell that this is a very high quality eyeshadow when you touch it in the pan. It is just buttery and creamy and silky smooth, and I think it matches the shade in the palette pretty darn well, considering that shade is pretty darn cool toned and has a lot of gray undertones, but still has a little bit of that kind of pink peeking through. That is exactly what Touch of Glam Beauty's Pink Me About It will do for you. It is absolutely beautiful, and I think it is a very, very close match to Pat Mcgrath's. And the very final dupe is for the shade Mink Noir. Now this is a rich cool brown. This is a typical Pat McGrath shade. I feel like she always has like some variation of a very rich deep brown tone in one of her palettes, or if it's not brown, it's like a taupe or black, something neutral to kind of round the palette out. But I reached for Makeup Geek's Aphrodite. No, this is not sponsored by Makeup Geek. I don't know why I decided to pick 2 Makeup Geek eyeshadows for this one video when I never really picked them for dupes videos, but I digress, that's beyond the point. This is described as a deep plum brown with a matte finish. Now this is from the original Mani MUA palette. If you have been on YouTube for a hot minute, you probably remember when Mani MUA came out with the Makeup Geek palette. I do, I wanted it so bad, but I just couldn't afford it at the time. Oh, it makes me nostalgic for the golden days of YouTube and makeup YouTube in general before everything got absolutely crazy. But I digress. This is a really pigmented, beautiful plummy brown. You really get that plum undertone, but it's definitely still a brown. It's not like a plum with a hint of brown. It's a very rich color, and it blends out really nicely as well. I think it's pigmented pretty darn well. I'm sure Auntie Pat's formula would be much more blendable and much easier to work with because that's what you're getting when you pay for a Pat McGrath palette. But considering this eyeshadow was only like $2.50 on their website, I think that's a pretty darn good deal, and I think the color is pretty dang spot on. Alright folks, but that is going to be wrapping up today's video. I really hope that you enjoyed seeing these Pat McGrath dupes. Honestly, I wanted both of the Pat McGrath quads so freaking bad when I first saw them, but I thought to myself, girl, take it easy. You know you have dupes, so I went ahead and just compiled them for you guys. So if you want to see dupes for the Fleur Fantasia palette or the Risque Rose palette, I have that available here on my channel. And let me know down below if you have any personal dupes for any Pat McGrath shades as well. Girl, I would love to hear it because I love me some good Pat McGrath dupes because Auntie Pat is amazing but very expensive and hard on the wallet. So I always appreciate a good Pat McGrath dupe. But if you enjoyed today's video, I would absolutely love it if you give me a big old thumbs up. It helps out the channel, it helps out microscopic, minuscule YouTubers such as myself. So if you choose to do so, then I greatly appreciate you. Thank you so much. And if you are not already subscribed, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel as well. But with that being said, I hope you are having an absolutely amazing and beautiful day wherever you are. I hope you are staying safe, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!